Welcome to the Mountain Dude Podcast, brought to you by Initial Ascent, where we share stories of grit, determination, and the relentless pursuit of growth. This is a space where backcountry hunting meets the deeper lessons of life. Success born from struggle and the art of carrying heavy loads more comfortably, both physically and metaphorically, through faith and perseverance. Join us as we explore the paths that shape us, celebrate victories big and small, and fuel our journey with hope and tenacity. This is the Mountain Dude Podcast, where we climb higher together. It's going to give you a different sensation.
I didn't know that.
With the cupcake. I mean, you're going to taste the icing first.
Yeah, that makes sense.
With your taste bud. It is. Yeah. So that could be a bonus.
Is it the best part, though?
Depends on what kind of cupcake you're eating.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
What's the red cupcakes with the white frosting?
Red velvet.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So when you said strawberry or chocolate, I immediately went to red velvet. Like, that was what my wedding cake was.
Oh, yeah.
I love me some red velvet.
Trey and Tay's wedding cake was red velvet. And then they showed up with two halves, actually, because they had a little bitty cake, you know? And it was chocolate and white icing. I'm like, where's the red velvet?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, we kept that.
Yeah.
Can't say I blame them.
To freeze dry.
Didn't give me any of that.
Can't say I blame them. Well, let's start this off with a prayer. Father, we're so gracious to be able to gather around this table again and just share stories and memories, Lord. We thank you for the time we have, Lord. We just ask you may just continue to guide us, Lord, that you may just let us be a beacon or a lighthouse for your love, Lord. You just use us in any way that you see fit. Lord, we love you, and we give you all the glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Well, today will be a little bit different on the Mountain Dude Podcast. We got Rodger Holscher back in studio, and Rodger and I have hunted a lot together. The last, what did you say, it was 2019 we started hunting together?
Yep.
So about 7 years now. And we've hunted and thankfully killed a lot of critters together. And so today I want to just this is going to be story time. This will be a little different. We'll give you some tips and tactics and tricks with Rodger, because I'm sure we'll get back to a lot of the shooting stuff, which is his specialty. So we'll touch on some of that. But I want to share some of the fun hunts and the stories that we've had together.
Had a lot of them.
Yeah.
So that's good. Yeah.
Off the top of your head, what do you think your favorite one is?
Oh, man, favorite one? That buck in the snow was pretty cool.
That was really cool.
Yeah, the way that went down, that was cool. But, I mean, you were with me when I shot my only elk, so
honestly,
that's a good one too, especially with the lead up to that one.
Yep. And I think that one, like when I think about that question, because I was like, I'm going to ask Rodger. I don't know what the answer to this one is. That's the one that went right to the top of my brain. I'm like, it was the Rodger's first bull.
Yeah, that was pretty good. That was a cool one, for sure.
And that was wild because you went up that hunt before I did. I think I was in training with the PD.
Yeah, that's why you couldn't come up taking the days off.
So we were kind of limited day-wise. Mm-hmm. You ended up going up before I did.
Yeah, I think I was 3 days before you, I think, something like that.
Yep. Not eating. Literally starving to death.
Yeah, we talked about the first podcast, nutrition, and now that one was a bad one.
Yeah, that one was
We can
really
get into
bad.
that one if you want.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so we planned to hunt that unit together. You were in training. I was off already. I think the way my schedule worked out. And so I went up.
That was our first elk hunt together, right?
Yeah, because I think the year before you were up there with Tanner, and I think that was my first time in that unit.
Yep.
And I think that was my first archery elk hunt. I was there the year before with a buddy, but we were in a different unit. And that was
totally different.
We saw one bull, I think, in 7 days. So totally different experience this time. I went up a few days early, got into this nasty country solo. It's dry, which had a lot of its own issues with it, but I got into some bulls right away. I mean, you were right on the spot with where you sent me into, and got into some bulls. Almost got a shot on one opening day, or I guess probably not the opening day. The first day I was up there, first full morning, I was up there, got into a bull.
And this was early. This is like first week of September.
1 or 2, something like that, I think is when I got up in there. So hot, dry, really not rut activity yet, but I got in some bugling bulls on this one mountainside, and they were hot and heavy going at it, and I was the only guy up there, which was cool. I was expecting to run into a lot of people. Now you'll run into a lot of people. It seems like there's a lot more people in there now than there used to be.
Yeah.
But got into this bull, bedded him down midday, snuck in there, called him in. I mean, he was smashing a brush right in front of me. He ended up 25 yards, but couldn't get a shot at him. So I was like, man, this is cool. First time I'd really had that experience with elk. Only time I've had it since then too, which was weird. But so I hunted up there for a few days, chasing those bulls around, getting water out of a wallow, with a pump. Like, it was pretty rough. Well, I should back up. The first night I get there, I get all my meals out ready to eat them, and I'm like, dang, I forgot my spoon at the truck. And
you pack 3 of everything else.
I do,
too,
I know,
normally.
right? And
but
now
not
I have
spoon.
more spoons, but I had 3 options. I could have stayed up there and not ate my meals, which is what I ended up doing, which is a terrible idea, if anybody's wondering. I could have fashioned a way to eat it, and I could have cut the bag open, just drank it, whatever. Or I could have just walked back to the 4-wheeler, drove back down to camp and got it, and just, wasted a few hours. Well, I chose the wrong one, obviously, and didn't eat meals for
3 days.
So I was
trying to whittle.
It was
a spoon out of a stick.
Right, and I'm kind of like the MacGyver kind of guy, so I should have done something right, and I just was like, I'll be fine. Yeah. Huge mistake. So I was for 3 days up and down these mountains, not drinking a whole lot of water because I didn't have a whole lot to begin with, and wasn't eating a whole lot. So I think in 3 days I probably ate 2,500 calories in 3 days.
A bunch of snacks and stuff.
Just my snacks. I didn't eat my meals. I was bringing, kind of a breakfast meal and a lunch or a dinner meal, and then snacks in between. So probably in 3 days, 2,500 to 3,000 calories, which
not enough.
Especially this dude eats more than that in half a day.
Right? before dinner.
So I was starting to bonk hardcore, and I think I was coming off of a carnivore diet. So
you were,
which is probably what helped me stay in it a little bit longer than I should have, only eating that calorie content. But yeah, I was bonking hard. The last day before he came in that night, I was coming up out of that nasty hole and bonked so hard, like I would take 1 or 2 steps and had to stop and kneel down just because I didn't have the energy to get up this mountain, and it was starting to get lightheaded and dizzy. Like it was the only moment that I can remember so far that I've thought about hitting that SOS button. Like I almost didn't think I could get out of there.
Wow.
I was drinking water and throwing it back up. Like, it was bad. I ended up making it.
Yeah, sorry. I think the plan was I was going to backpack in and
you were going to come meet
there.
me.
Yeah, that's right. And I hadn't heard from you for a couple hours when I got up there, and the last update that I'd got from him was that he was hurting really bad. So I started getting pretty worried.
Yeah.
And I jump on the 4-wheeler and
so I got back to my tent and didn't have the energy to just pack up my tent. So I took the trekking pole out of it and then laid it down, and I fell asleep for a couple hours on there, and then kind of gathered up the energy to pack everything in, and then walked a couple miles back out to the 4-wheeler, and then met him on the road back down. But I was hurting bad, so we ended up going back to the truck. I think I had 2 peak refill meals that night, just trying to load up. But still, when you're at that kind of a calorie deficit, it takes more than 1 meal to
for sure.
come back.
It's real hard to catch up.
And I felt bad because this is his first day up there, ready to elk hunt, and I'm just in a bad way. And he wanted to go back down in that area that I was at, and we ended up doing it for a day or 2.
I think, the next morning we kind of cruised in there, and you were still hurting pretty bad that next morning, so we decided not to go all the way back in there, and we were coming back to relocate midday.
No, we hunted back in there a couple days because we ended up, there was a few times that I was not too happy with when you were like, there's one down there. And I'm like,
I think that's every time, isn't it?
I know, right? Yeah. It's hard enough for me to keep up with you as it is, and then let alone that kind of a energy deficit.
Yeah.
But I think we were in there for a couple of days because there was that one point that we got out on that rock knob and then we were working that bull that we dropped off way down there, and I almost didn't make it out of that hole again. Yep. And then I think after a day or so up there, we're like, hey, we need to go back to camp and relocate. I just couldn't do that kind of steep country at that point. And I think we were on our way back when you ended up locating that bull.
Yeah, it was like mid-morning. One of those spots that you just always drive by
spot, right?
And you look at it and you're like, man, that looks good. But it's like within a quarter mile of camp. Like it's the spot that everybody drives by, which little tip for everybody, that's usually the spot. Yeah. And so I remember stopping there. This was the first time we'd ever really hunted it much. So I stopped there and it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. Wasn't it?
No, it was probably noon. Okay. Well, I think maybe I killed him at about 2 or 12:30, so it was probably by the time we got in there, so 11ish. Yeah,
and we stopped, and I start bugling from across the canyon. And I remember telling Rodger, like, I've always thought this looked good. Let's just throw out some locator bugles, and it was probably 10 or 15 minutes, and a bull sounds off bedded, and I'm instantly like, all right, let's go. And Rodger's like,
well, let's preface this with, I am hurting and I want to get back to the truck. And so when he stops and he's doing something, I'm like, I just want to get back to the truck right now. Like, so I'm not happy already that he's like wanting to stop and send off locator bugles in here. And I don't have my hearing aids in, so I can't hear bugles very well. And so I always called him the phantom bugler because he would be like, oh, did you hear that one? I'm like, no, dude, I don't hear nothing. He's like, there's a bull down there. Let's go down there. And I'm like, dude, if I know there's a bull down there, like, it makes it a little bit easier. But if I can't hear it, I'm like, he's just wanting me to go down there. I don't know if there's a bull or not. So it's the same thing. He hears this bull bedded across there, and he's like, did you hear that bull? No, dude, I don't hear nothing, And so he's like, no, there's a bull bedded over here, And we make a plan to go around, and we don't get in. We're not even in the timber, and we jump that big buck.
Yeah, like we just step into the timber.
Yeah, in a really nice velvet 4-point. I mean, he was easy, a 180.
Yeah.
Velvet.
Great buck.
Great buck.
At like 80, inside 80.
No,
he's probably
when we first jumped him, he was probably 30 in front of us, and then he bounded out to 80 and
stops.
I would much rather hunt mule deer than elk.
Yeah.
Did your hunt change right there?
Oh, 100%. Because I still don't hear this bull. So
there's not a bull here in his
There
mind.
is a really good buck in front of us, and he's like worried about getting around. It just so happens the route that we had to take to get to that bull is kind of where that buck was bounding to. So the whole time he's trying to like elk hunt, I'm like trying to sneak in on this buck.
So you guys are on two different ways.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
And 100%.
I said it. Yeah, I said it again. You got me.
So I'm like laser focused on this buck, and he's focused on the bull. And we ended up bumping him another couple times. Couldn't get a shot at that buck, and I think we'd sat down to just probably get a snack or something. I whip out a Justin's peanut butter packet.
Well, I think when we first stopped, he first stops. He starts snacking. We both kind of start snacking, and I just worked a cold calling sequence for probably 15, 20 minutes.
And I still don't hear this bull. Well, he didn't bugle at all. I don't think
never
so.
made another peep.
So I'm still like, whatever. There ain't no bull over here.
And then we both eat lunch.
You guys are busting out snacks, busting out, and you're doing this cold calling sequence.
This is after. So we cold call for like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And nothing. And so we're quiet because I know that it can happen fast in some of these scenarios this early.
Get back on that buck.
Yeah. So. Rodger's still peeking around for this deer. Like, I think that buck's here to come back around. And we're sitting there eating, and all of a sudden I see antler tips at probably 90 yards.
I was going to say, it never fails. If I'm doing a cold calling sequence, or somebody I'm with does a cold calling sequence, and we immediately bust out the snacks and lunch after that.
Absolutely.
Something's walking in, quiet, and
almost every time,
there
right?
with our pants down.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And that's exactly what happens.
Not literally, but
I see. Yeah.
And
I see antler tips.
I still don't believe him that there's a bull there, because I didn't see the bull either. I'm
like, Rodger, grab your bow.
Deep into my Justin's peanut butter.
Heard him.
Yeah.
You're focused.
And then Rodger, there's a bull. Grab your stuff. And I'm like, what the? I'm grabbing my bow. I'm trying to, I still don't see it. And then we take off running through this, kind of a deadfall area, and I still don't know. And he's like, go over there. And he hangs back. And I'm like, dude, I still don't see this bull. I don't know what you're talking about.
And I had waited, so this bull, it was obvious we weren't going to get a shot on this bull right off the bat, because he kind of comes in and he's looking around trying to figure out where this cold calling sequence was coming from. And so I wait, and then he turns around to head out. And at this point, that's when I tell Rodger, I'm like, grab your bow, let's go. Because that's the moment of opportunity. Like, he was super intrigued. He's kind of given up on it. If I can spark that again real quick, it's game on.
Yeah. And he's a good elk caller, and I'm not. So, like, I'm just, whatever you want me to do, let's do it. But I still am like, whatever, because I don't think there's a bull there, because I didn't hear him. I didn't see him. Just trusting him, right? So I take off down here, and then the first time I see this bull, I kind of peeked over this little ridge, and it goes down into another little draw, and I see this bull, and he's going away from me. I'm like, oh man, there is a bull.
Yeah.
And he hits him with this,
for you,
dude. Yeah, right.
About the buck.
Well, I still was kind of
Still looking around.
He hits this bull with a bugle, and he just turns him on a dime, and he starts coming right back up, and I'm like, oh crap. So I hunkered down a little bit, and I waited because he was going to be on a string right at Chris, and so I'd hunker down, and then I stood up at first to just, as soon as I started seeing antler tips, then I dropped and drew, and so he comes up, I start seeing antler tips, I drop down to a knee, I draw, and as soon as I start seeing more antler tips, I kind of raise up a little bit, and then he stops and looks at me, and he's quartered to me hard, and so I don't have room to slip it behind the shoulder, so I frontal rip a shot. It hits him perfect right in frontal, just starts gushing blood everywhere. He spins. I'm able to watch him go back down to that draw where I'd first saw him, and he's dead in 10 seconds, like just flopped over dead, and I'm freaking out, like, what
Literally
the heck just happened? Because from the time that I first laid eyes on this bull to the time that he was dead was 30 seconds. Like, it happened like that.
Wow.
And yeah, I'm exhausted. I'm cooked, but it's like that rush energy right there just from
Well, I can remember coming, I like run out, so I don't even know the bow goes off nothing, but I hear Rodger trying to cow call.
I blew the reed out of the cow call.
100%. It sounds like, that's literally what it sounds like. So I'm like looking up there, and I can see him like just frantic. So I kind of run up there, and I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, I haven't seen Rodger this excited ever. Like, even since then, I don't think. And he is just losing it. And he's like, bull comes up, frontal, full draw, just telling me the story, and he's amped. Yeah. And I'm like
my 3-year-old or 4-year-old story. Right. Just kind of bits and pieces mixed in. And
I'm like trying to piece this thing together, and I'm like, did you see him? Where's he at? Where'd the bull go? Oh, and he's like, oh, he's right there. And I like stand up on the log, and this bull's like 40 yards, just dead. And then we both kind of lose it together. And it was
special too, because I didn't think I was going to be able to archery hunt that year. I tore my rotator cuff earlier in the year and had to really change my archery setup. And luckily, I had enough room in that bow to drop the poundage way down, and I upped the weight of my arrows and stuff to just get a little bit more out of it. I have a lower poundage bow, and that arrow zipped right through him long ways and came out his rear flank and zipped all the way through. A beautiful pass through. But
how far was he when you shot him?
About 12 yards.
12. Wow. That's awesome.
Right there, super close. Yeah, it was a great. I wish I would have believed him a little bit sooner, but yeah, it was. Never did find that buck again.
You're still thinking about that buck.
I think I shot him a couple years later, or the year after in the snow.
Probably.
I think it was
really?
Same buck. Same hillside, same boxy frame. I think we had a low moisture winter the year before, so I think he was regressed a little bit. I aged that buck at 5.5 years old, but he had that same frame, just was a little crabby on some spots, but. Yeah, I think it was the same buck. But
he's a beautiful buck.
Man, that was.
I would love to shoot him in the
epic
in the velvet.
The sweatshirt, actually, the logo.
Oh yeah, that was that. Huh? Yeah,
that's a picture that we took of that bull.
That's right
on that Packout in the sunset.
Yeah, that was rough too. It wasn't that far of a Packout, but I was smoked.
That in that country, like, it is the perfect country for bulls, because this is a super high pressured unit, and so these bulls actually, instead of making it super deep, they usually end up closer to camps, and from my experience, they will rut in these little timber pockets with just nasty deadfall that holds everything they need. It's got water, seclusion. People drive right by them. Like, we've literally experienced, I've watched bulls in get on some glassing knobs, look into that north-facing timber, and they will bugle, and people will drive up, and you can see someone get off, go walk out a ridge, bugle, and I've chased some really good bulls in this unit that are within 200 yards of a guy on a ridge, and this guy's bugling just from the road, and bull doesn't make a noise, and he hops on, and as soon as he starts the bike and drives off, then that bull will kind of round up his cows, make a little bugle, and keep rutting. Like
I've looked
very
at
smart.
that same north facing timber pocket from another little finger cut that goes down with a rifle tag, and you could see them elk in there, people on the ridge above them. They were zipping around in there, and you never know it because they're silent. They know the game. But yeah, it was rough. We were out of water too.
Yeah,
my filter after sucking water out of an elk wallow for a few days was pretty plugged up. So I'm sitting there trying to pump out of this other elk wallow, and we're just getting little bits of water and sharing water just to be able to get back down. I think we didn't get back to camp with that load until 9-ish.
Yeah, you killed them at noon, and we're half a mile from camp on a four-wheeler.
Yeah.
Like,
it was hot too.
How did that work with you? I mean, you were already,
Yeah. Like I said, I got a boost of energy after that whole thing, but I mean, it took us a while to cut them up. And
it did.
We didn't bone them out, did we? I don't think so. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
We brought out quarters, and that was, and it wasn't a long pack out,
No, not
but
at all.
the deadfall and just the fact that Rodger was smoked, like we had to go half a mile up to the ridge, and then it's probably another mile back to the bike, so it's not a bad pack out. But just that coupled with the 5 days that he had prior,
it was tough. But it was, that was.
So
that buck still haunts me.
Oh yeah, it would me too. But it sounds like you made up for it.
Yeah, that's my only. I guess I've shot another couple bulls, but only one I've recovered.
So speaking of elk, so you said you weren't much of a caller, or you didn't fancy yourself much of a caller. Chris is kind of the caller out of the duo. What do you do when you're solo? When you're waiting on Chris to get there, because it sounds like you're always waiting on Chris to get there. What are you doing? What's your go-to tactic?
I did a lot. I mean, I don't fancy myself a bad caller, but he's on another level. But so if we're together, he's the one that's calling, and even if he's the shooter and I'm supposed to be the caller, he's still calling.
That's okay. That's okay. So are you more of spot and stalk?
Yeah, I shot a bull 2 years later in that unit. Yeah, it was 2 years later.
Yeah.
It was the year after you almost fought me on that.
Oh, I do remember. That's a good story too.
Tell that one
There's firefighters up there on that one too.
Yeah.
Second responders always get in the way.
Yeah. Anyway, so I especially in that unit, because they get a lot of pressure, a lot of callers are in there. I've found that it's easier to just bed them down like a mule deer and then kind of still hunt through that timber pocket that they're in. You could see them from at least in this pocket where I shot this bull a couple of years later, I could see where they were going into this timber pocket, and I actually had camped above it, had walked down the ridge because I knew they would go over from the south-facing slope on one side, and they were crossing over to the north-facing on the other side in the morning. So I got above them, came down, playing the wind pretty well. I had to actually back in and out because of the wind was shifting, but I watched this group of elk cross. They were 150 yards in front of me, cross over, bull and probably about 8 cows into this timber pocket, and I was close enough where I could still hear them in that timber pocket, not bugling, but just breaking brush and everything and doing elk stuff. And I had to wait until a midday when the thermal shifted. I knew they were pretty strong going uphill, and then I slipped in to this timber pocket and just caught them as they were up midday feeding kind of in this timber pocket. Ended up shooting a bull without even making a call. They had no idea it was in that area, which turns out there was another guy, a guy we ended up knowing pretty well, that shot that same bull I shot after I shot it, because he didn't know I was on the mountain because I wasn't calling. He wasn't calling either, so I had no idea he was there.
He just saw a bull standing there, probably about to die. Probably.
Yeah, I shot him, so he was facing to my right. I shot him. I probably hit the backside shoulder. Well, I know I hit the backside shoulder, so it didn't have a full pass through. double lung, backside shoulder. He turned and went downhill. And, I knew it was a good shot. It was 42 yards, something like that. So good shot on him. I'm up. I go back up to the top. I start making phone calls. Like, I'm up there solo. I just got this buck or this bull.
You called me.
Both I did. Like, I called you. I called both of you guys and was like, hey, I just shot this bull. Like, I might need some help.
Yeah,
like, you guys were getting ready to haul butt up there.
We were literally, because we had that conversation, and I remember when you're telling that story, you're telling us, oh yeah, I just shot a bull. Like, I don't know exactly what happened. I felt like it was a really good shot. And so Dennis and both of us, I was working that day, and we were both like, okay, as soon as I get off work, we're just going to carpool up there together.
Yeah,
and then you texted me and said, well, hold up,
stand down,
stand
or
by, or
something.
something. And I called Dennis, and I'm like, he's just losing faith. Like, we're still going up there. And so we started kind of getting ready, and then
I waited an hour and a half for that bull to die, and meanwhile that guy had shot him, died in front of him, and cut him up and started hauling him out. So I start tracking him down, and I see this hunter coming up the hill. I could see his legs through the timber, and I was like, so I didn't get shot. I was like, hey, Hunter, and as I come peeling around this tree, I was like, hey man, you wouldn't happen to seen a dead bull on your way up the mountain, did you? And he's just the one on my back, just as I turned the corner. And he's got my bull on his back, and I was like, and I knew the guy immediately. I saw him. We helped him pack out a bull the year before, so I knew who he was, and I was like, hey, and I just shot this bull. That's the bull I just shot. And he was like, oh, I just shot him too. And he shows me his arrow, and it's all bloody, and I have no reason not to believe the guy. And our timelines check out, because I showed him where I called my family and told them that I'd, in a video that I did, that I just shot this bull, and he showed me pictures of it. The same, that timeline just worked out perfect. And he tells me that bull ran down in front of him and kind of stopped in this clearing about 20 yards, and he heart shoots it, and it dies within, a few seconds, and
2 feet.
And it was like, well, how did he not see, the arrow sticking in him? Well, he broke off the arrow on the way down.
Yeah.
And
it was the opposite side.
The opposite side. So he'd ran down and he'd shot him on the left, so you don't see anything on this side. And he was a solo hunter, so like he's not rolling this bull over, he's not doing a bunch of stuff, and he cut up that bull in an hour and a half and was packing it out already, which the two of us took my first bull a lot longer. So he wasn't messing around. He's not studying stuff. He's getting right to work, cutting things up and getting them out. So, I have no reason not to believe the guy. That everything checked out, that it just happened that we were hunting the same elk, and it just happened that way. And
what are the odds?
And he tells me, he's like, hey man, the carcass is right there if you don't believe me. And I believed him, but I still went down afterwards, and you could see my impact. Yeah.
You found yours.
Yeah.
Golly.
And it just...
Now,
the odds?
I haven't heard of anything like that.
No,
archery wise.
Yeah, I've heard of rifle stuff for sure. Yeah.
When we were talking about it, like when you called, because I think you called me.
Yeah, we got back
and
to
I'm
the
like,
top.
no, like no way. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Like, what? That's that's
crazy story. And
so what did I mean? You ended up helping this dude pack the bull out, didn't you?
Not that bull. He was coming back in the next day with a motorcycle and was going to pack the rest of it out. But and another guy, I offered, because we'd helped him the year before pack out a bull. But
you offered to help him pack your bull out.
Yeah,
dude. I mean, I got all kinds of emotions going right now. I mean, what do you do? I mean, you could get pissed off at the guy, but like you say, he didn't know.
Yeah, it wasn't malicious. Nothing.
It wasn't malicious or anything like that.
How am I gonna fight him over a bull or just argue with him? He did, he had offered to like give me. I'm like, dude, you killed it. You spent the time cutting it up. Like, it feels weird that I take any of it from you, Yeah. So, and I kind of just chalk it up as a live run. I found these elk. I developed a tactic or a plan. I implemented it. I got a shot off. I put a good shot on a bull. Like,
you harvested a bull.
Yeah, I got a good live execution run of a.
So do you notch your tag? I mean,
no, I didn't. I don't think I did.
And I don't see why.
I had to come out anyway a couple days later, but I was looking for the reason we were both in there in that same area is I was working a bull the night before, big 6x7, giant, and I don't know if I just probably called too much or just wasn't doing what I should, but he was bugling back, we were working, and then he just never ended up committing to where I could get a shot on him. But I figured that he was going to go back into that draw. That's why I was up in there, and he'd saw that bull from across the ridge. He didn't know I was up there working him, so he saw that bull, so he was going in there to try to get that same bull, and we ended up shooting. It was a little raghorn 6, but it was so I tried to hunt that bigger bull, and I never did see him again.
Yeah.
But I think a buddy of mine shot him with that rifle tag about a month and a half later. Broke off a G3, and he was still 348. It was a big bull.
He's big. Really big.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is public land.
Yeah.
Yep.
Heavy
Over
pressure unit. You were chasing a bull that probably went at least that.
Yeah, for sure.
The year after or the year before? It was the year before.
You got a better memory with
I think it was
because they all combined for
I
me.
came out.
Yes, that's right.
You and Matt stayed in there.
Yep, that was when Matt and I were in there. That was Jurassic Park that day.
Yeah.
That was one of the cooler elk hunt days. We had bulls everywhere.
Yeah, and
which doesn't happen a whole lot.
No,
under those over-the-counter public land units. Like
you caught it just right where it was that rut fest. There was probably a couple hot cows in that one basin.
That herd had just moved into that basin. There was some hot cows. Like I'm talking, you can't sleep at night because the bulls are bugling and keeping you up. Like, what an elk hunter dreams of.
Yeah,
it was.
Which is why I like mule hunting, because I've not had that experience.
Yeah, Rodger used to always tell me, he's like, I'd rather chase predators, which he's got me sold on the bear hunting. We've had some wild bear hunts together. There's been some really fun ones. What's top of the bucket list on the bear list or on the bear hunts?
Man, I don't know. That's a tough one. We've had some good ones.
How many bears have we killed together?
I don't know.
Quite a few.
Didn't you have
6
one you shot in
probably.
your Crocs?
Yeah.
Oh,
that was a good one, because you went in and killed that bear.
Yep.
We were deep in there.
That is like the epitome of us as a hunting partnership, literally.
He hunts his butt off, and I just shoot.
Roger works hard in the off season so he can shoot a long ways.
You just fill tags.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's Roger's MO. Like his famous quote is, "I'm not here for an adventure. I'm here to kill things."
Yeah. So that hunt was cool, because you killed your bear because of your physical ability, and then I killed mine just because of shooting.
100%.
But it was kind of like it drew to both of our strengths that one hunt.
Yep. Yeah, we backpacked in night 1. Found that bear, or night 2?
I think it was the first night.
It was the first night, because the second night we went over the other side.
Yeah, we stayed in there.
Yep. So we found that bear that night, and it was a mad dash.
Yeah.
Like just a sprint off the glassing knob right towards the last light, and end up putting a shot on that bear. And that bear ends up not dying immediately. This is why I shoot bears until they stop.
Yeah.
Runs into the bottom, and we walked down in there afterwards. And
at dark?
Yes. Pretty well dark.
We were down there deep enough where we had that conversation of, do we back all the way back up to the top and let it sit overnight, or do we just go in there and try to recover it and bring it out with us when we go up? Because we were pretty close to the bottom by the time you got that shot off.
It was quite a trek too. I mean, it's not an easy.
We dropped a lot of elevation running, and he was running. I was trying not to trip over myself as I ran down after him.
Well, and Roger's the expert marksman here, so I usually rely on him to give me a wind call or dope, especially in this scenario, because this was early in my shooting career, really, before I really got somewhat proficient at it. I'm still obviously not at Roger's level, but so I can remember running up there, and I'm literally getting prone, and I'm thinking, Roger, you better hurry up, dude. I don't know what I'm going to do without you.
So the only wind call he was doing was the wind coming out of his lungs.
Yeah. Yes. I was huffing and puffing. I was.
Yeah.
It was a long ways down, and it's funny because the next year I shot that bear from the knob instead of running down.
Yes. Yeah.
So I would have just shot that bear from the knob and
100.
took my time getting down.
Well, absolutely.
We bailed off, and then we had that conversation, and so it was like, all right, we're down here, we might as well go try to recover it. And we both got our handguns out. I actually put my phone in my bino harness like a body camera and had it rolling because I figured it was going to get spicy, and it did. I went full hood on that bear when I saw it because
you'd have filled a swear jar in about 7 seconds.
Yeah. That's why I haven't posted that video. And so we're down there looking, and I see the bear, and its eyes are horizontal instead of vertical. And I was like, hey, it's over here. Oh, hey, man, that ain't dead. Hey, shoot that.
Just
I'm going to shoot that thing because we're 10, 12 yards from it, and we're deep in this thick pocket, and I don't know what it.
And it's pretty well dark. Like
is.
he's spotlighting it with his handgun just about at this point.
And it was like, hey, it's not dead. You better shoot this thing. And I almost cranked one off with that handgun, but he cranked one off with that 300 and ended it right there. Then we left her down in there for a couple of days because it was cool, shaded, creek bottom.
Nice. Y'all went ahead, took care of it, and then
hung it up at the bottom.
Yeah, because it was night one, so we still had a few days that we were fixing on being in there. And
this is early May, so you've still got plenty of cool weather. We don't have to worry about the meat.
And the wind up there too.
Always blowing. That's the reason we ended up actually pulling out mainly because we got into other bears. It was supposed to get a really hot spell, so we were worried about getting that meat back to the truck.
Gotcha.
So we ended up spending
it's a long way down.
Yeah, bad decision. This was probably my idea. Usually when we go the long way, it's always my idea. I'm like, this will.
Because we could have easily went down and had a nice, easy pack out because we've done that same pack out before. But we went, let's go down over here. Let's drop off of this. Blah, blah, go down.
Yeah.
So we didn't get back to the truck until 1 at night, kind of thing. We actually got to another spot that we were like, all right, we'll just hang out here. But it was starting to get hot. We both took a nap, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we were on those chairs. And
I got a picture of Rodger just literally leaned over, forehead on his binos.
Yeah, so, and it was getting hot, so we're like, man, we got to get this on ice. So we got back to the truck at like 1 o'clock in the morning. By the time we got a tent popped and slept, it was probably 2 o'clock in the morning by the time we fell asleep. And the next morning, this guy wakes us up, comes in to the trailhead, and I shouldn't have woken up. I sleep hard, and I shouldn't have woken up. But I wake up, and this guy, we start chatting, and guy's getting ready to go in to where we just came out of, but on a motorcycle, and bear hunting and everything. And we start chatting, and he's like, "Oh, look, there's one right there running across this hillside." This mother.
Rodger's sitting in his Crocs.
Yeah, I'm in my Crocs, dude, just waking up, and I look at the guy, and I was like, "You gonna shoot it?" And he pulls up his binos, and he looks at it for a second, and he's like, "I don't think it's a 6.5 footer. Go ahead."
What?
And I just reach over, grab my rifle, lay down prone, and waiting for it to get out of one of these depressions and come back up. And as soon as it pops out, I says, "Hey, somebody give me a range." Chris goes, 465.
Boom.
Rolls this bear. Rolled the bear down the hill, and the guy was like,
and this bear was on the move, right?
Yeah,
he was cruising.
He was cruising across his hillside. And the guy kind of had this, what
just happened?
I think he was expecting us to grab our stuff and go around and try to cut this bear off and not just shoot it from where I was standing.
He didn't know who he was dealing with.
Yeah, and
he had no idea. He literally looks at me when Rodger starts grabbing his rifle. He's like, he's going to shoot him from right here? As this bear's like moving across the hillside.
And the guy had already told you, he's not a 6.5 foot bear.
Yeah. So that's the best part about
we ended up
the
swapping phone numbers because he was like, "Hey, let me know what that bear is when you get a chance." And he was a 6.5 footer.
Right at 6.5.
I get it. That guy, our hunt was just about over.
Yep.
His hunt was just beginning.
He had just got there.
He had some time, and he's killed some bears back in there before. We were swapping pictures and stories and stuff, and he's killed some really nice bears. So, he didn't want his hunt to be over, and ours was just about. So it ended up working out really well. But his bear on that one played to his strengths, and then mine just played to mine.
Yeah,
because then we could take our time getting across the creek, and
the thing is you didn't even think about it. You just went into robot mode, and you just did what you do.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Give me a range. You had a range. Any wind?
No, he was running, so I held, let him for the movement. But it was first thing in the morning. There was no wind.
So when you're doing that, and I don't typically, I'm not going to shoot something that's on the run. Okay, I don't take that chance. That's a lot different than some people. You practice, at that. are proficient at that. Me, I feel like I'm gonna hit the animal bad or something like that and just make the situation worse.
Yeah.
But you took that shot. Now, I know it depends on, how fast they're moving and all that. On this particular shot, how fast do you think he was moving, and how did you lead him?
So I knew at that distance my time of flight for that bullet was about half a second.
Okay.
And so I kind of judge how fast he's moving. You can go 1-1, counting your 1,000s, go 1-1 for about half a second.
Yep.
And you could track how fast he moves in your reticle at that distance, at that time of flight, and then lead that in front of him.
And you're doing all this in 2
on
seconds.
The fly. Yeah.
Fast.
Yeah.
He hits this bear and just crushes this bear, literally rolls dead. And that guy, I wish I had a camera. He turns around and looks at me like, what? What just happened? I'm like, yeah, that's Rodger.
Yeah, and are you...
The next year I shot that one at 600 on the run. And that one was getting it. That was a full
This
sprint.
is one of my favorite ones. We'll ask your question, Dennis, and
I
then
was
we'll
just
going to
say, so when you're leading a bear like that, and maybe you can answer this on the next one too, but I mean, are you just, since you're braced up, you've got your points of contact, you were prone, right?
Yeah.
You're just putting it on a spot. You're not putting it on his head and, pulling the trigger and following through with the shot or anything.
No, not leading it, like a
like a
waterfowl
drop.
something you're not following through with it.
I just wanted to make sure the audience knew.
Yeah, it was kind of more of an ambush shot. Like, I knew what my hold was in my reticle for that distance. I had a BDC reticle on that scope, and I knew what my hold was for elevation on that, and I held that in front of him, basically let him get into it, and then press a good shot.
Yeah.
It's when you have more time, it's easier to kind of do it calculated like that, but honestly, I think a lot of it came down to just having shot a lot of stuff on the run, whether it's coyotes on the run. I've hit a few things. I mean, that buck I shot in the run was a bad shot, but I hit him back.
A little back, that was still a good shot, because that buck, that was in November with a buck rutting, and it wasn't just a cruise. That was on a sprint.
But I try to hold more than I think, because if you miss, you miss in front, you don't hit them. If you hold it right, you hit them good.
Yeah.
So you kind of same with the wind. I'll hold on the upwind side of things.
The more conservative.
Yeah. So if it's like, okay, it's at least a 10-mile-an-hour wind, it might be 15. Depending on which way he's facing, I'll hold the 10. That way, if it is 15, so I'll hold the 10 on the upwind side of the body. That way, if it's a 15, then it still drifts and it's still going to hit vitals. So
you mean you'll hold if it's 10 or 15, you're going to take the higher number, right?
Well, so if say there's the deer, whatever is facing left, and the wind is blowing from left to right.
Yep.
And I'm like, it's at least a 10.
Yeah.
No way in the world it's less than 10. But it might be 15.
Yeah.
If I hold 15 at the upwind side of the vitals, like towards his brisket, if I hold that 15 and it's 10, I miss him. Mm-hmm. But if I'm like, all right, it's at least a 10.
Yeah.
If it's 15, it drifts another couple inches and it's still a hit.
Oh, gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? So it's given me that room for error. For that wind call. So I'll try to do that on most things, just to give myself that. Most people could judge wind in 5-mile-an-hour brackets. You really got to get good at it to get down to a couple miles an hour.
Yeah.
So if you bracket it that way, you give yourself room for that error, that P number.
Yeah.
Well, when that, speaking of wind, that bear that you were talking about that you shot that year, the next year in that same drainage where I sprinted and killed my bear, we'd packed in that day, and I think we relocated from an entirely different unit and had put a lot of miles on in this day. So we get to that spot and start glassing that night, and Rodger and Tanner go back to fill up all of our waters just a couple 100 yards down in the creek. And Jordan and I stay on glass And I turned this bear up, and this bear's a long ways away, probably over 2,000 yards. Huh?
Yeah, it's probably close.
Yeah. And I'm like, in this scenario, I'm kind of thinking about it. We've got maybe a half hour of light when I first see him left, probably more like 20 minutes. And I'm like, I'm probably not going to put myself in that position.
He thought about it, though. He was hardcore,
100%.
and I was like, dude, I don't think, I was the little
voice
guy
of
on the
reason.
shoulder, like, dude,
That's right.
I don't think you're going to get there, man. I know you're in shape, but that's a long ways to cover.
It is, in
And
that
this
little
is
amount of time.
early May, too, so I started thinking, okay, we'll just bank on the fact that bear's going to be there in the morning.
Yeah.
Which has come back to bite us in the past,
Yeah.
and
It's a
probably
risk
will
you-
in the future.
It's a risk you got to be willing to take, that's for sure.
So we start having that conversation, and I'm like, well, let's just wait till morning. And so we keep on glassing, and it gets to be like pretty well dark. Like we're right at the last few minutes of legal light. And so we're like, let's call it. And keep in mind, the wind had been blowing today, like
Yeah, the wind on that knob where we're at is stupid.
probably 25 mile an hour
Yeah.
gusts. Like it's miserable. So we literally pack up and we start walking out. And I think you did. No, I saw him last. So
Yeah.
we start walking out, and I turn around as everyone's kind of walking back up the ridge to camp. And I look across, and I'm like, bear. That bear had made one whole ridge and it got on the finger closest to us. And he was, what, 6'15"?
Well, before that, we saw him running.
Oh, that's right.
Like he was going
Yeah.
up this draw away from us at that 1,600, 2,000 yard mark. And that's why I was like, all right, he's moving away. Chris, you're not going to be able to close that distance. Because even that ridge line that he wanted to get to, that he thought he could, it was still going to be like 1,000 yard shot. It was going to still be a long shot. He could have probably made it to that one ridge, but then it's still, if he kept moving especially, it would have been a long ways. So we were kind of writing him off. And then I don't know who it was, saw him running like,
Yeah, I think it was Jordan. That's right.
yeah, and
Saw him
just
kind of
was
turn
running
around.
at us, and we're like, well, that's weird that he's, bears kind of do weird things, but for him to not just mosey, but like run at us was weird. And so we lost him in this depression, and it was like, all right, well, gig's probably up. But before that, Chris had saw him initially, so it was going to be his shot or pass if he decided, but I was kind of behind everybody. My wind get my wind call and everything, and I figured him for about a 17 mile an hour wind, and got everything set and my phone out and was ranging stuff like, okay, if he pops out here, this is probably the spot he's going to pop out, 600. Okay, cool. Got all my data, went over to my scope, dialed it on, had my wind call. I had it all set, and my bipod set out. Like I had my rifle right there, and I was just waiting.
Everything was ready.
Everything
if
was
you
ready.
needed to crawl behind that rifle, you're ready.
I was going to have him crawl behind it.
That's exactly what happens. That bear comes out, and I'm like, oh, that bear's out. And Rodger looks at me, and he's like, you going to shoot him? And I'm like, we're having 25 mile an hour gusts. And I look at Rodger, I'm like, I'm not comfortable making that shot.
And just like
he didn't even get that sentence out, and your ass
like
was
the guy the year
behind
before, man. You give me that. Nope, I ain't gonna argue with you.
Yep.
So I laid down behind that rifle, and that bear had got to that knob or that ridge line, bald ridge line, and sat down and was looking away from us.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a whole lot of, like I said, that room for error for that wind call. So luckily I had that, got my data and stuff, and had that wind call ready because I laid down, sat down, or got down behind that rifle, pressed off a shot, and I hit that bear right in the middle of the back. Great spot to hit that bear.
Perfect.
So he starts, doing the fish out of water flop on there, and I racked another one, and he's still moving. So I try to crank off another one, but as he's flopping around like this, I ended up missing. He gets back on his feet as I rack another round, and he starts running side hill at that 600 yards down this hillside like he'd just been shot. He's running hard, just full tilt.
And the rule is, if the bear's still moving, you're still shooting.
Yep. And this is going to lead into the next part of the story because he did get shot. And so he's getting it, and I zoom out on I had my scope because it was a second focal plane scope at the time, which is where I really don't like those. I had to have it at full power to get my wind hash marks to subtensions to line up with my data. Well, as soon as he started running, all bets were off. So I zoomed out of that scope, and I was not as diligent about that lead as I probably was on the other bear because I was zoomed out already. So my subtensions are already not going to track. But he's he's hit already, so I'm just trying to get another one in him. And I lead this bear a long ways because he's just getting it in 600 yards too. So I crank off that round and just crush him. Fumble, just starts rolling down the hill. Like,
literally, we were all losing it. Like 600 yards, 20+ mile an hour gusts, and Rodger just hit this bear 2 out of 3 times. And one of them was on the run, the run.
I was surprised I hit him, honestly, on that one.
But that was all, that all happened successfully because you're confident with your weapon.
Yeah.
You've practiced with your weapon. You know your weapon like the back
I built
of your
that
hand.
rifle like from the ground up, like hand loads and everything. Like with the old boy that we ran into, I think the year before. It was right at that movie, the Tomorrow Wars came out with Pratt. What's his
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt. And so this old cattle rancher was up there getting his cows, and so we were sitting there, and he came up and he was looking at it. He's like, "Is that one of them Tomorrow rifles?" I was like, thinking about the Tomorrow Wars thing, because it just came out, and I was like, "What?" He goes, "It's one of them rifles. You shoot them so far today, you have to get them tomorrow."
Yep.
Just coming from the little boy ranch. I'm like, man, that's a good one, man.
That is, man. I won't forget that one.
Yeah, so it was kind of one of them Tomorrow rifles. And so it was pretty funny. But yeah, so it was dark at that point. We were already up at the top, so there was no need for us to go down. So we're like, all right, we're gonna let them lay. We'll go back in there in the morning, get them. So all 4 of us went down there the next morning. It was the same draw that your bear was in.
Yeah.
And I went up on the hillside where he was sitting initially when I hit him to just cut the track, and they all fanned out on the other side just in case he popped out. One of them can shoot him if he wasn't dead still. And as soon as I get up into his tracks, I find his tracks because there's no other tracks on the mountain, and he was running, so it was just fresh dirt sloughed out and everything. And in his tracks was one lone wolf track. And it's like, oh, this is different, so
Plot just thickened.
Yeah. So I follow the tracks down into the creek bottom, and he crosses the creek and kind of comes back and forth, and not a lot of blood, which is kind of what you expect with some bears sometimes. So, but had really good tracks. I was following them down, but because they had fanned out already, Jordan had spotted him in the creek bottom, laying there. You could see him, and so he's like, "Hey, I got him over here." So I abandoned the track and run over to where he's at, and kneel down with my rifle and scope, and I look in there, and I'm telling everybody, like, "Hey, somebody throw a rock in there." And I go, "Hey, bear." And then when I do that, he moves, and I was like, "Oh, he ain't dead." Ooh. Crank off around in there, and at that point we were probably 20 yards from him. Crank off around, and had a big nasty break on the gun. Didn't have a suppressor on it, and I didn't put my ears in because it happened like that, and so I get rocked.
Nobody can hear at this point.
Yeah, and I'm trying to put ears in, get another round in this gun, and it jams. And so I'm trying to fix this jam as this bear's flopping around, and I'm, they're all behind me with handguns. We all got handguns, so I was
He's tough.
but I'm trying to get this gun fixed. So I get it fixed, but then it's thick, and I can't hear because at this point I put my ears in, so I can't hear. I can't see him.
How far do you think we are at this point, too? Just so you
by the time
kind of picture this.
By the time I rack that round and we start going in there, we're sub 20.
Oh, 100%.
And so we're trying to find this bear in this thick willow bottoms, and so we're zigzagging around, get in there, and I finally see him. At this point, we're probably 10, 12 yards from this bear. Chris is behind me.
Losing it. Now we're the other way around. Like, bro, you better shoot this bear.
Right? So we had that flip of the year before where you better shoot. But he was laying in the creek, kind of up on the bank with his front paws out, and he was facing us, and all I could see was his head and his paws. And I got onto a stump with my bipod out and zoomed in, and I could watch that bear's eyes just tracking all of us, going back and forth between me and Chris and the other 2 guys, just watching us. I'm like, man, this thing's fixing to charge. Like, he's sizing us up right now, but
oh my word,
I'm not going to shoot him in the face. And so
he's got 3 rounds in him.
He's got 3 rounds in him out of a 300 short mag with a 200 grain ELDX. So he's got some lead in him at this point. Yep. But I told Chris, I was like, I'm just going to wait until he posts up to try to stand up and then shoot him again. And we were probably sitting there for a few minutes, and then he posted up to stand up, and I hit him in the chest and rolled him backwards and rack another one in him, and he's still in that creek flopping around, and I hit him again, and I give him another one, I hit him again. So by the time that he expires in that creek, he had 6.
Wow. 6, just 6 eating him.
Yeah.
And that was a good bear, too. That was another 6.5 foot bear.
And he ate every one of them in the upper torso, like
man.
in a good spot, and it, when we finally got up to the bear and started cutting him up, I looked at that first impact that hit him right between the shoulder blades, like just a perfect spot. But it hit him in the thick spot of the spine where it comes down from the crest down out to the ribs. Hit him right in that spot, not between ribs, and didn't break his back. And so I found that bullet in his spine.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
crazy.
Then the other one, I hit him on the run. It hit him in the neck. And it kind of crumpled some spine, but didn't hit an artery or anything. And rightfully, that bear shouldn't have stopped where he did. He should have probably kept on going all the way down to the bottom of that draw. But I think what had happened is what made that bear run initially was a wolf. I think that wolf was chasing that bear.
Was pushing him.
And which is when he stopped on that knob and looked back, I think he was looking back at that wolf that was chasing him.
And we've seen some pretty good-sized wolves be run by, or pretty good-sized bears be run by cats, too. Run off kills.
We had that one year before, a couple years before, chase a bear off. A cat did.
That was
so, and I think why he didn't continue all the way down is I think that wolf had bait him in that creek bottom where it was at, because he was in that first shot I shot it. He was in kind of a half moon section of that willow bottoms that was real thick, and he was bait in there like a hounds will bay a bear. I think that wolf bait him in there, which is the only reason that we didn't have to go.
And the only reason the wolf left was because you guys came up.
probably so.
Yeah.
That would be my assumption.
So let me ask you this: both of you guys have police backgrounds, and what are you talked in another episode about, taking out your pistol and having to, almost having to finish a bear off. Talk to us about what pistols you guys are carrying, how you're carrying them, and do you have a light attached, or are you running just depending on your headlamp? What are you doing there?
Go ahead, Rodger. This is Rodger's expertise.
Yeah, so I used to carry a lot of different handguns. I have a few, but because the agency carries Glocks, I kind of reverted everything that I carry to Glocks just because of the consistency with, Glocks have a funny grip angle compared to some guns. So, like, the grip angle is the same, the trigger's the same, like, everything's the same. I want to keep that consistency because if I got, a couple thousand rounds a year on a Glock, but then I carry another gun off, it doesn't necessarily translate over to, that. So I carry a Glock 19 most of the time when I am hunting, or a Glock 43X, but they always have a light on them. And I switched. I think that time I didn't have a dot on it, but now everything I carry has a red dot on it. But I think a handgun's no good without a light because target identification and everything. So
You want that light pointing wherever that handgun is, or vice versa.
Well, and you're going to lose accuracy too if you're trying to rely on a actual flashlight, or if you're trying to rely on your headlamp, you're going to end up getting shadow in your field of view. So
that's a good point.
Yeah. And it's when those things come out, it's because something bad's going down. Whether it's something goes bump in the night and you got to identify what it is, or you got a bear in the dark and some thick stuff that might charge you, and so being able to identify that and get off good shots. And a lot of the times, too, is for a hasty point-and-shoot situation, if you got your light on, most of the time those lights are in your point of aim anyway, so you can use kind of the center hotspot of that light as an aiming point if you have to
reference.
I hadn't thought about that.
Reference real quick.
Yeah.
And maybe you blind them for just a split second as well.
That's true. That's one thing. You flood that area with light and disorient. So whether that's a human or a bear, if they can't see you, that's a win in my book. If it gives you an extra couple seconds of advantage over that animal or person to be able to identify and make the decision to fire. Light's always good.
So holster-wise, you carrying it on your hip?
Yeah, always on my hip. Just
What we're both used to.
Yeah.
So we've done forever.
yeah, right.
Okay.
When
And is
something startles you, I go to the hip. Unless I appendix carry a lot, but can't do that with a backpack on. So it always goes to the backpack on the right side hip.
Okay.
And
Kydex
then-
style holster.
Yeah.
And I think both of us have kind of gone to holsters that we can unclip from that backpack strap and put on.
Yeah, if we had to drop the backpack, and
You drop
if you're
the
gonna
backpack.
I'm still grabbing that handgun.
You
throwing
go,
it on.
to take care of your business or whatever.
Yep.
You can take that pistol with you.
Or on a stock, like if you're archery hunting or whatever, like you literally just unclip it, put it on your actual belt, and now you've still got your handgun with you.
Okay.
Yeah, and the holsters I carry are kind of duty style holsters that have a level of retention to them, so a lever usually. I've had just the regular press Kydex ones that just work on a friction. Guns come out. I've seen guys lose guns on the mountain because it just works its way out of the holster, and then pretty soon by the time they figure it out, like, where'd it go? So and I'm used to working a level of retention anyway, so it's not something that hinders me, but it gives me the security that gun's not going to come out when I don't want it to.
Yeah, and if you don't want to use Kydex, some guys don't want to do that, and they just want to stick with leather or whatever.
Yeah.
We got a friend of ours, Angry Dick.
Yes.
That he makes a leather holster that will go in our pack, but it also will come out, and you can put it in your waistband as well.
I do need to try that. I'm looking at that thing.
Those are still quick, right?
Yes.
Like I see a lot of the guys that have I always call them the old Uncle Mikes, like Cordura, they got a strap over it that's got a button on it, a snap or, Velcro or something. Those are so hard to get out quickly that you're almost defeating the purpose of having it, because whether it's a grizzly bear or a bear or something, like, you have to get that thing out and into the fight quick, and that kind of defeats the purpose of having it. Some of the chest harness ones that are, at a funky angle and have, then again, all that other stuff, like the time that it takes to get that out, it's just doesn't do me any good if I can't get it out like that.
What about, so I was talking to Joel Turner one time, and he was actually, I was at an event where he was teaching pistol proficiency and just to where it pertains to charging bears. Okay. And so one of the things he talked about was having that holstered somehow to where you could actually grab it with both hands. If a bear grabbed you by one arm, needing to get at it. And, I've thought a lot about that, and how could you do that? Have you got any opinion on how you could set that up?
Yeah, so we train that a lot in law enforcement is like injured, right? Like if you get shot or something in the arm and this one's down, how you can reach over with your left hand, and you could do it even if it's on your right hip, be able to reach over, and probably even easier with a backpack. A lot of times you either have to grab the gun in the holster or grab the backpack belt and pull it further center line, so it's not as much of an angle. Then you can reach in and either defeat the retention or just be able to pull up with your middle finger, put it between your legs or set it down, or somehow roll that gun over to your left hand and use it. That's a bad day, though, if you got something like that going on. That's something that is a good thought to do, and maybe being able to try it, dry runs with it, and see, the time that you want to try that is probably not when you're getting bitten.
Right.
But that's a good point. I never really thought about it that way.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think you have to, just because that's something we've trained because of the background for however long now, Yeah, that's true. But, that's a good frame of thought, because some of those ones that are up on your chest or in some of those different positions, I would imagine would be a hard thing to do left-handed and be able to get it out.
Right, yeah, because mine, the one that I carry is a chest harness, but it only comes out to the right.
It's a Kydex one, right? Though?
Yeah, it's a Kydex holster, and it's got like a 3-point harness that goes around. You're very, very comfortable. It goes underneath my bino harness, and it actually helps keep the bino harness up for the ones that aren't designed properly. where they
sag down to your belly button.
Exactly. And so, but yeah, it only comes out the one. And I for the life of me, I don't know if I could get it out with this hand without shooting myself.
Yeah.
But
especially in a moment.
Yeah.
I would just say, feed the bear your left hand.
Yeah.
That's right.
Coming in.
Bring a buddy with you that's slower.
So doing a lot of the canine stuff in law enforcement, like, I always, if I had a dog coming at me, I would feed him my right or my left arm.
Oh, okay. That's a tough decision.
Yeah. That would be.
I'd try to front kick that thing. I'm not feeding nothing.
Right.
Except
get offline and get to it.
Keep
but
coming,
if you had to give him something,
like
it'd be my left.
Wow.
Feed him that, and
that's
then
interesting.
Be able to get to it. And
if you know he's there,
that's true.
Feed him the one that you think you'll get the least amount of use out of later.
Hopefully you get shots in before he gets to you. But
for sure.
I mean, that's speaking on the handgun stuff. Just as important as the gun is the ammo that you carry in that thing.
Oh, what do you do? I know some people that will swap ammo, like every other one. They'll do a different one.
I have all mine. I've magazines are loaded with this ammo. It's a Underwood ammunition. It's their extreme penetrator stuff. It's a plus P plus, so high pressure 9mm.
This is a family friendly show.
Yeah. So
just I couldn't resist.
What did I say?
Nothing. You didn't.
Did I say
we don't want to put it in your head.
Continue.
Oh. So I load that, and then now I'm wondering what I said. Or what I should have said that I didn't say or something.
So the ammo is it's what?
It's Underwood ammunition, extreme. Oh,
there it is.
Okay.
There's the light.
Right.
This is where Chase said it's in a light bulb.
Well,
Ding.
I'm so worried about cussing that I thought I slipped in an F-bomb or something.
He doesn't want to buy us lunch.
So it's a solid copper round. It's a Lehigh Defense. They're extreme penetrator bullet, but it's loaded by Underwood ammunition, and you can buy them on Midway USA. I think some local stores might carry it, but it's a good. You want penetration when it comes to bear defense and stuff. I thought I was the one that was going to take this into the gun.
Sorry, I'm on a roll now.
But hard cast ammunition is still good stuff too.
Okay.
But I used to carry hollow points in a 40 cal that I carried for a while, and I ended up having to shoot a pig when it was really close and not dead yet. And it surprised me when I started cutting up that pig that I only got, granted pigs have that nasty armor, thick fat layer, but I only got like 3/4 of an inch of penetration on that pig.
With a hollow point.
Yeah, with a hollow point. And a couple weeks before I was chasing that same pig because that pig had ate one of my rounds and was still alive 2 weeks later, so I went and found him again and shot him. But I was tracking this pig. We had depredation tags on this property in California for pigs because they were eating this guy's corn like crazy. Mm-hmm. So I was tracking this pig through 6-foot-high corn stalk with this 40 cal, thinking that I was going to be able to do the job with this thing. And then when I shot it and figured out how much penetration I had, I went, oh, man, I'm going to rethink this because I had a false sense of security with that gun out when I was tracking it through that corn.
Yeah. So talk about a hollow point and then the other ammo that you prefer.
Yeah.
How do they open? What happens when they hit?
So the hollow points will work on the hydrostatic forces that are on it and will mushroom it out and open it up. So they're made for lack of penetration, which is, if I'm shooting a bad guy on the street, I want to hit him and not what's behind him. Okay. So you don't want over-penetration with a lot of self-defense ammo or duty ammo, but for animals, like, you want that penetration to get into the vitals, especially hard stuff that's, bear's face or something like that. Like, I want to get the penetration. I'm not necessarily worried if it hits the bank on the backside of it. Yeah. So hard cast ammunition, if you cannot afford anything, even full metal jacket stuff will crush and not get the penetration, but it'll be better than a hollow point. Hornady makes some good stuff now. Their bear defense stuff, Buffalo Boar. There's a lot of companies that have hard cast. That lead is super hard stuff, and it's not going to expand, or solid copper stuff like the Lehigh Defense bullets. But that's always a big conversation, right? Everybody's like, "Oh, what should you carry in bear country?" And guys, I'm fortunate enough to not hunt in grizzly bear country, so I never have to really worry too much about that, although they are creeping into some of the areas that we hunt. Actually, one was killed in a unit that I hunted in a couple of years ago. And I was like, I had no idea that was even a possibility. So it's becoming more and more of a reality, but I want something that I can put rounds on target. There's, the big guns are fine if you can hit what you're aiming at, but most of the time they're harder to shoot because they're a wheel gun, and how many people train with that. The ammo's super expensive. They recoil like crazy, so you might get one round on, but if you're going to be able to get multiple, and if that one round doesn't hit, you got to be able to get rounds on target. That's the only ones that count, are the ones that hit. And so, Glock 19 with 16 rounds in a 9mm that I can shoot very, very proficiently. Even if I was in Grizz country, I would carry something like that, just because I know, and a lot of bears get killed with 9mm.
Stacking rounds too.
Dan Picard had that one black bear charge him several years ago, and he shot it
with his bow, right?
No, well, he shot it with his bow, and then had to shoot it with the handgun.
Yeah, Brian Barney had the same thing.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, so it happens, and I want something that I can get those rounds on, get it out of a holster quick, and get rounds on something very fast. And a 9mm is going to have, especially if you get that right ammo, is going to have plenty of stopping power, I guess, if you want to call it that. I hate that word, but that penetration enough to get into the vitals and stop that.
Gotcha.
That bear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Personally.
Well, we'll end it at that. I appreciate you sharing some stories. There'll be lots more. I'm sure this will be something that happens again.
Absolutely.
We've had lots of hunts together. We'll have lots of hunts. We didn't even share the scorpion story. So, listeners, you got a story to look forward to.
Another episode.
It'll be coming. Yeah. That's a good one.
That was the first introduction for me and Dennis.
Yeah, that's why the swear jar came out.
Yeah, I didn't even know Idaho had scorpions.
Yep.
I didn't either.
Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Mountain Dude Podcast. Remember to hit the like and subscribe button, and comment. Leave us a 5-star review. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, buddy.
Okay. Until next time, keep your eyes on the summit. This is the Mountain Dude Podcast, signing off.